Called the meeting to order, and ask Holly to read roll. Again, when you instead of just saying aye, also please state what agency you're with and who you're representing, a profession or a industry group. Go ahead, Holly. Thank you.
Okay. Wendy Hess.
Hi, I'm here. Wendy Hess, representing Communications Centers from Woodbury County.
Jason Hoffman.
Hello, Jason Hoffman, representing the Communication Centers.
Mindy Benson.
Present. Mindy Benson, Blackhawk County Emergency Manager, representing Iowa Emergency Management Association.
Michelle Bischoff.
Present. Michelle Bischoff, City of Des Moines Fire, representing Iowa Professional Firefighters. Chiefs,
Curtis Slogan.
Present, representing volunteer fire departments and Lakeford Fire.
David Ness.
Des Moines Police, Municipal Police.
Daniel Schaefer.
Present and Municipal Police.
Dan Banks.
President, Worth County Sheriff, representing Sheriff's Offices.
Jason Slutenhofer.
Present, Wright County Sheriff, representing Iowa Sheriff's Office.
Angela Clauser.
Present, representing Panorama Community Schools, member at large.
Haley Nichols. Cindy Height.
Present, representing Iowa Department of Public Health.
Peter Huffman.
Present, representing the Iowa Department of Transportation.
Trace Kendig.
This is Matt Berner, sitting in for Trace Kendig, representing the Iowa DNR.
Keith Hove.
Present, Iowa Department of Public Safety.
Patrick Updike.
Patrick Updike is present, Iowa Department of Corrections.
Blake Jerucci.
Present, Iowa Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Jessica Chuba.
Present, Iowa Office of the Chief Information Officer.
And do we have any legislative members?
Kristen Sunday with the House of Representatives.
Okay. And we do have a quorum.
Super. Outstanding participation today. Thank you. Just in introductory remarks, I would like to thank Representative Sunday, not only for being here today, but also she had a conversation with Swickmeyers and a few of us trying to learn more about what ethics and what our needs are and how she can help facilitate that. So appreciate your continued interest and participation this morning.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
You bet. Anyone else, board members, able to join after your name is called? All right, we'll roll right into the agenda then. I'll entertain approval of today's agenda.
Mr. Chair, this is Chris. We do have potential corrections to the agenda. I believe Webster City PD should be marked as level 3 under new business as opposed to level 2. On my copy, it shows up as level 2.
All right, so noted. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Motion. Second.
Got first Wooten, second Peter. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
And opposed. I'll entertain a motion for the meeting minutes from August 12th.
Move, Huffman.
Second. Same two. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed. All right, Chris, the quick report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some housekeeping notes really quick. In case we do have any issues with the internet, please be patient. We have a couple of potential backup methods of running this meeting on hot standby. So it'll take us a couple minutes to cut over to one or the other, but we were able to do that a couple of times today. Large fiber cuts, such as what we're experiencing now, are no fun. But as they say, Semper Gumby, always be flexible, and we're just glad that Dallas County has been an exceptional host with plenty of backups for us in case something like this arises. So, again, I want to thank Dallas County and Sheriff Leonard and Jerry McClenahan and company, and especially today their IT people for helping make sure that we could host not only this meeting, but the 911 council meeting prior to it. They've had a lot of on-the-fly work to do today to get this done so that we could continue to have these meetings. So I want to send a huge thank you to everybody at Dallas County today. We'll start off my report today, Mr. Chair, with the what could be the final control station update, or at least the second last one. You may recall last month I submitted our closeout report to HSCMD for that project. The last piece of documentation we have to support is our final quarterly report that is due at end of September. Once that is filed, we should be able to consider this program as being officially complete. Again, I want to thank everybody involved with this project. There were a number of people involved with this. This includes a lot of personnel at HSCMD, such as John Benson, Blake Carucci, and Tara Dowd. Again, thank you to everybody at HSCMD for their help with this. I want to extend a huge thank you to Chief Walter as well as Cedar Rapids Fire. Wally was instrumental in getting a lot of these things configured and programmed appropriately so that we can get them out in VSAPs in a at least semi-ready state. I also want to thank DPS Fleet and Supplies and Captain Pierce for his help with that. For those of you that may not have thought about this previously, that was a huge amount of equipment to bring into a space, and DPS Fleet and Supply was very gracious with not only the space, but the amount of time that stuff was there, so that we could house that equipment, get it configured and set up, and so that it could be deployed. And then I also want to thank every single PSAP that worked with us on the distribution and delivery of the equipment along with the installation. It was a huge undertaking on several fronts from multiple parties, and I think everybody did exactly what they needed to do to make this program a resounding success. It was a huge undertaking, and we were able to get every single PSAP in the state of Iowa connected to Isicsb, at least on an interoperable level, which is a huge, huge success. So again, thank you to everybody. One thing of note for those here, if you're curious about some activities that I'll be engaging in over the next month, I am scheduled to present now virtually at IWCE at the end of this month. That was initially going to be an in-person presentation at that conference, but travel was pulled yesterday because of concerns with COVID. I will still be presenting virtually during that conference at the end of this month. The two topics of conversation, the first one is coordinating interoperability at all levels of government. I will be presenting on how we've kind of handled that here in the state of Iowa, along with the states of North Carolina, state of Texas, and also with SPISA. Another presentation that I'll be participating in is one called Advancing Interoperability, the role of Project 25 user needs. This is going to be a presentation that discusses on aspects of how P25 standards are created and implemented and designed around feedback from user agencies and general users such as Iowa. That presentation will be done along with the Federal Bureau of Land Management, CISA, states of Texas, and states of Connecticut. For those that are wondering what we'll get out of this, it's a huge opportunity for us to showcase some of the work we've put into enhancing interoperability here in Iowa, the improvements we've seen both with policy, governance, and technology, and to showcase that at a national stage. So it's really huge for us as far as showing that, you know, what we've been able to accomplish here. As far as some more persistent things, we continue to coordinate on the ratio response, the SDR deployment in Clinton. Consider that to be steady state at this point, which is good. We've still been coordinating with HSCMD on our Fema reimbursement. I don't have anything new to report this month, but I know that that is being looked at and a project is in session with that. As far as Clinton goes specifically, their recovery project is making good progress. We still have a commitment to them to keep that SDR there through their recovery. They have been making some significant progress over the last several months, and it sounds like their recovery may be complete sometime around the end of this calendar year. Assuming that's the case, that is also when that SDR would be demobilized and brought back to central Iowa for some cleaning and maintenance, and then staging for the next deployment. With respect to some other activities that are ongoing, I'd like to remind agencies that local agency-based Isicsb training is still available. We did have to push back one situational awareness training with the local agency a month or so, but we also do one-on-one sessions that kind of cover a broad brush approach. We'll be giving one of those on Monday of next week in Ringgold County. And then we can also do a follow-up feedback session as well. Once again, there's no cost for this. With respect to Isicsb regional training, we're still working on the logistics for the next round of regional training. Of course, we're taking into account local issues such as COVID protocols, the ability to meet in person, and things of the sort. We're still working on some of those logistics. We don't have necessarily anything to announce at this point. With respect to status board, that MOA with Minnesota for the status board update is nearly complete. Minnesota, just a heads up, has started full rolling out their update. And what that means for us is that once they have something that they deem as being stable, part of the agreement is we will get that source code back from them, and then we will be able to bring that into our house, add our updates, and then deploy that here, and then send our updates back to them. It's kind of a partnership between our two states. One thing to keep in mind for agencies that are using status board, any sites that are going down for maintenance are being listed on status board. Once again, you'll have to click on the column underneath the site status tab and click on current administration notes twice to sort by those sites that may be undergoing some maintenance. Again, status board is one of those things we provide PSAPs for their situational awareness and to help them manage their own events, and that is available at no cost to the agencies that are using it. One last item of note, our FOG, EFOG, and 6P meeting is scheduled for the end of September at DPS headquarters. I believe it's the last week of September on Wednesday. I think that's the 29th, if I remember right. If you would like to participate in that, please let me know. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, that is my report for the month. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the 911 Council report with Program Manager Drury.
Thank you. Going over what was covered at the 911 Council meeting prior to this, a couple highlights. We sent out an email reminder to PSAPs yesterday that there is a state contract for language translation services. So that is a very economically friendly way if you've been wanting to be able to do transfers and consults on various languages as part of a 911 call. So the information was sent out to PSAPs. That is free to sign up. It's really just pay as you go, pay as you need it. So that's available. If you have any questions, feel free to let myself or Allie Bright from our office know. The other significant thing that we talked about was it's been a many-month process, but we released our cost recovery study. That's the cost that PSAPs have to pay the telcos basically to provide 911 service. So for those that might be interested in that, there's probably some legislative effort down the road. It presents a number of options looking ahead, but worth a read if you're interested in that topic. It kind of ties in with our wireline migration project as well. So really that concludes my briefing. If there's any questions, I take them.
Thank you, Blake. User Group Committee, Chair Studenhofer.
Yeah, the user group committee met last week or 2 weeks ago and approved 5 new applicants. You'll see those down in the new business. We discussed the addition to paging groups being added to the application. We tabled that for next month's meeting, and we'll go further from there. That's all I have for you.
Very well. We'll hear from you later. Thank you. Finance Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for that. Checking on some stuff here quick. Finance Committee, a couple of things ongoing within that group. Our monthly expenditures for last month were $7,983.91. We have a currently working balance of $222,000.36 out of the Broadband and Interoperability Fund. As we reported last month, our appropriation was deposited. That's good. So we have something to work off of through the rest of the year. Following our meeting last month here within the board, when we agreed to work with DPS on seeking an appropriations increase, we've had several meetings within the hierarchy to try to get that done. We have submitted numerous documents and a multitude of paperwork to show what we're up to and what we're trying to do over the long term. We don't have anything to report out on specific dollar amounts at this point, but the ones that are working with the appropriation groups are aware of what our goals and ideas and our impacts are as well. And hopefully we'll have something to report over the next couple of months with respect to an appropriations increase. So it's a little bit too early to say what we may get out of it, but everything has been turned in and it was pretty well received.
Excuse me, and that's a follow-up from our discussion of the last board meeting. The letter was drafted by myself, sent to DPS for their consideration, and in my analysis, it would I would deem it a pretty modest request for SDR upgrades, replacing equipment, and then also for continuing critical staff that had previously been paid by grant funding. So a few small things like that, but we're hopeful and continuing to work through the Interop Bureau. Appreciate their continued efforts on our behalf. Any other questions for finance? All right, we'll move on to operations. Chair Bischoff.
Did you intentionally skip governance?
No.
Perhaps Chair Hoffman would like to report.
Thank you.
It will be very interesting. The meeting would have been scheduled for Labor Day, but as there was no new business, we did not reschedule the meeting.
All right, back to you, Michelle. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Operations, since the last meeting, we met twice, worked on the pursuit policy, which is now to the standards working group. The standards working group also has the sub-regional standard, and then the topic that has really been consuming our attention has been the encryption standard development, and we're just continuing to methodically work through that process and working with technology as well. As soon as we get our ideas solidified into a standard, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to outreach. Mr. Myers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll cover this today. You kind of heard me talk about this briefly in my quick report about the next round of Isicsb regional training. We're still working and reaching out to local agencies on potential locations for regional training. Ideally, we would like to hit Region 5 next. I think we've got a good lead on where we could go there. But also, I'll kind of re-engage everybody on the phone and on the room with us today. If you have any facilities that you want to offer up for that type of session, please let me or Holly know. We are happy to look and see what we can fit. Typically, we're looking for these outreach facilities. It's generally somewhere between 25 and 45 people from that capacity. That's great because we have just enough people in there to get the information out across a large group. But at the same time, it's not so large that agencies don't feel like they can ask questions. So if you have a facility you'd like to offer up to us for the next round of regional training, again, we're looking for spots in Region 5, 6, 4, 3, and 1. Please let me or Holly know. My report for the month, Mr. Chair. That's back to you.
Thank you. And on to the training committee. Is there a report this month?
Hi, thank you, Chair. This is Haley. There is no report due to low attendance. We just tabled the agenda until September 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you. On to Technology Committee. I bet Chair Updike has a report.
Thank you. This will be a short report, but Technology met on August 26th and September 7th. We are moving into the data interoperability subject. So we spent both of those calls discussing the preliminaries of achieving data interoperability. And so as time goes forward, you'll be hearing more and more about that, and you'll be seeing some of that in agenda item 16H. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any questions, so we'll move on to FirstNet Broadband. Chair Bischoff.
Thank you, Chair. For FirstNet, we had our monthly meeting and just had a standard meeting, as our topic was to discuss broadband data policies, but the speaker for that was unable to attend. So we will pick that up this month and continue on. Any questions?
Thank you for the report. Thank you. On to agenda item number 16, information sharing among board members. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I would like to inform the board on today, you may recall several months ago, we were looking at some things that we had that were of need, and one thing we had discussed was a radio cache, along with updating SDR trailers and things like that. I am happy to report that there has been perhaps some movement with the radio cache. I've been working pretty closely with HSE&D on those types of requests and needs, and we may have an opportunity to submit for a grant to at least fund a radio cache. Not exactly sure how big it would be at this point, but it looks like it may be around 20 or so radios with remote speaker mics, spare batteries, and gang chargers. There's a possibility that these could also be dual band radios as well, so that's good for us. We do have a lot of radios that do need to be updated within our SDR trailers, and it looks like if this does come through, this will be a small bite of that apple to help get that going. If this grant application were to be successful, we would probably keep them staged centrally within the Des Moines metro area for now, but as we were able to build on that cache in the future, they would probably then be distributed out with the SDR trailers for strategic staging and deployments. So I did want to pass that information on to the rest of the board members here today. That progress has been made on that to some extent, and as things evolve, I will let you all know. But again, I do want to extend a huge amount of thank you out to HSE&D for their work and coordination on this as well, as they've been immensely helpful.
Super. Additional information to be shared amongst board members. The privilege through the GPS Interop Bureau and with cooperation from Captain Pierce and Swick Myers, we'd like to draw attention to Deputy Swick Curtis Walzer and present him with a letter of appreciation. Regulation. This dovetails closely with the comment earlier about the closeout of the prior grant and the making sure every PSAP in Iowa could communicate on Isicsb. And I turn it over to Chris for some additional comments. And as the board may remember, and as Wally probably remembers, Wally was kind of moved into the role of Deputy Swick around the time this program was kicking off. And with respect to the deployment of the program and the resulting successes, we'd have been nowhere nearly as close to being successful as we have been without Chief Walzer's assistance here. And the Deputy Swick in this case went above and beyond in many instances to get this project done. Traveled on his own time, put in the extra hours within Fleet and Supply to help get those radios programmed. I think Captain Pierce, you may remember the day where you met Wally and saw him do his magic with a lot of those control stations. Just to put it in perspective here for everybody, it was no small feat to program that many consulates and that many different control stations from that many different manufacturers. We had 2 generations of Motorola consulates that ended up getting programmed underneath the guidance and directive of Chief Walzer. We had several Harris control stations. We had 2 iterations of Kenwood control stations that also got programmed with Wally's assistance, and there would have been no way that we could have done that without his help. Really, the impact of this project has been monumental. I think Lieutenant Holb, I think he can attest to this as well. We've had a lot of successful pursuits that are successful with respect to communications as a direct result of that consulate program with all the PSAPs, and Wally, you've been instrumental in doing that.
you've left an indelible mark on the improvement of interoperability across Iowa, and we, as a board and within DPS and within DOT all felt that that was worthy of significant recognition. So again, thank you, sir, for all your help with this. You've been, can't really put it into too many more words how instrumental you've been.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an awesome opportunity, and the friendships and the relationships formed are what are definitely a big takeaway for me, and will help me in my career. And when the next disaster hits us.
Yeah, I really appreciate your efforts and the willingness of your department to make you available, not only in your time, but also, I'm sure at the expense of some other priorities there in Cedar Rapids. But yeah, to have somebody that's so knowledgeable, so well respected within the different communities in Iowa, whether it's municipal, sheriff, Raycom, Motorola, across the board, everybody knows and recognizes and appreciates that they're going to get it straight and get assistance from Chief Walter. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
There was also something I have in my pocket to present, not my Chucky car sheet or my mask. But
wow, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Couldn't help but notice as I was walking by Blake Ridge, the critical aspect of Homeland Security and their securing that grant funding that made it possible as well. All right, excellent cause for celebration there. Motorola Project Manager is next on the agenda. Dave, you bet. Thanks, Dave.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Dave Gordon, Motorola. Just giving a quick update on the progress of our PMs on the Isicsb site that has been ongoing. So we're currently at, we've done all of the HVAC and generator PMs. Those were completed here not too long ago. We're just over 50 sites completed on the RF portion or the electronics, the radio system portion of things right now. We actually have a tech at Beaverdale site right now doing a PM. And then we're working on the schedule for the rest of the sites to finish out here in the next month or so. One of the things that's starting to come into the picture here is we have sites that now are unique in ways like, I'll give you an example, like the Woodward Story here, for example. They have, Isicsb has a site at Woodward and then a site at Story. Well, Boone County has a simulcast subsite in Boone as well that's tied into that simulcast cell. And so now when we look at PMs, we have to broaden that reach out there to say, hey, you know, Dallas and Boone County, we're going to PM Woodward Story. We need to make sure you're ready because we want to hit your site next. And then obviously he's got some ASR sites throughout the county for countywide coverage, sort of work on those schedules. We've got a lot of examples like that with Mills County, the Blackhawk cell, and all over the place here in the metro, Woodbury, and, you know, et cetera. So those will be coming up, and then we'll also be running some of those critical sites like Carroll, for example. You know, you guys use the site a lot up there, Jason, so when we schedule that PM, you're going to have some, you know, we're taking the site down for 2 to 3 hours to do the RPM and whatnot, and then bringing it back up. So making sure that the people out there know what's going on and they're aware of the situation, and we're getting that communication out from there. So that's really where we're at from the PM perspective. And then the other thing I'll update the board on is we're working on the scheduling and planning. I've talked to the Isicsb admin team with Lieutenant Hove and team that we're working on the upgrade to schedule the next Motorola system release, which will happen next fall, probably October 22 timeframe. So we'll start the planning here this year. We'll be working on some things probably starting August, where they'll do some database things and start checking servers and do all that stuff. And then we'll have lots of meetings and conversations about how that impacts the users out in the field when we do the upgrades to not only the master sites and the DSR sites and the dispatch sites, but then all the add-on users and things like that. So there'll be a lot of communication coming up from there. And that's all I have for you guys today.
Any questions for Dave Gordon? Thank you, sir. Isicsb System Admin, Connie. Probably, Connie, if you're on, you may have to unmute your line. Or I see Scott Richards is on as well.
I think Scott was giving a report.
Okay, Scott, if you're available.
He's on now.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. We've got you, Scott. Go ahead. All right, we'll jump ahead to the AT&T FirstNet update.
Hey, good morning. Jacob Coates. I'm filling in for Tyler Richard. He's out of the office today. I have the Northeast Iowa as my territory. Just a few updates for you. Just want to let you guys know we have completely filled our team, officially moved from 2 to 5 consultants for the state. Last month was our first full month with that, so we're going to hit the ground running and get some good stuff going for you guys. I unfortunately don't have any new tower build up for you guys for the last month. I do, however, have 3 towers to go live within the next 30 days across the state, and then 6 more that are slated to go live in the next within the next 60 days. So hopefully in the next coming meetings, we'll have some really good updates for you guys. But just wanted to fill you in with Tyler being out of the office. I appreciate the time.
Thank you for joining us, Jacob.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Anyone, Kevin, or anyone on with the FirstNet Authority?
Very good, sir. Thank you. Kevin Ida, Senior Public Safety Advisor with the First Responder Network Authority for the state of Iowa. And glad to be here today. We provided Holly Davidson a written update on our status. So I'll just do a quick synopsis on that. Remembering 9/11, how it changed public safety communications, one of our newest articles on our website, firstnet.gov. Our Public Safety Advisory Committee has taken stock of FirstNet momentum during annual business meeting and announces a new interim Public Safety Advisory Committee chair. Todd Early has served since 2015 and served as chair since 2018. He's retiring out, and so we'll have a new acting or interim chair that's going to be Jonathan Olson from the National EMS Management Association. He comes with many years and of experience as well as service to the PSAC committee. We also have a PSAC profile, our International Municipal Signal Association. One of the big announcements back on August 5th was Los Angeles City Fire Department and Los Angeles County Department of Health Services have adopted FirstNet. This was after continuous testing and its performance during COVID and other major emergencies in the city. Our latest podcast episode, we're up to episode number 57 now, live streaming using drones. Video helped Texas responders get back on track after a train derailment. We have additional 12 new devices on the NIST list, and the update has a link to that as well. Our board meeting on August 18th approved a $79.3 million budget for operations, $94.1 million for investments in support of the FirstNet network enhancements, and $79.3 million in reserve funds. One of the big announcements, thanks to outgoing members, Neil Cox and Ed Horowitz, have turned out. We should hear within the next couple of months who the replacements are going to be. And again, accolades to PSAC Chair Todd Early for his service. Our next board meeting is November 17th, and appreciate the ability to be able to present to you today. So if you have any questions, I can take those now.
Thanks for being with us. Thanks for the thorough report and the additional information you sent via email. Try again with Thank you. Gonna try again with the Isicsb system admin report if Scott was able to jump on, Scott Richardson.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. So I didn't have a lot this month. I did want to tie into Dave Gordon's update, however. As part of the annual RF maintenance procedure, I've been sending out announcements to a little over 325 email addresses. However, I have had multiple emails come back as undeliverable. So I'd like to appeal anybody that would like to update their contact information. If you want to send us an email at isicsb@dps.state.ia.us, or you can update contact info at isicsb.info website. And that'll help us get announcements out, be it maintenance or what have you about the system to any user that would need those. In addition to that, I've got new numbers for August. The total radios for August were 24,754. Total talk groups were 2,576, and the total push-to-talks were 2,387,191. And that concludes my report. If anyone has questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thanks for your persistence and joining us and providing the information today.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're up to CISA, and we welcome Jim Stromberg. His update.
Thank you. Well, hello, my name is Jim Stromberg, and I'm an Emergency Communications Coordinator for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. As you all are probably well aware, your coordinator, Jim Lundstedt, will be retiring very soon and is presently burning some vacation time before his last day. And I've been asked to support Iowa. I live in Minneapolis, and I'm the primary coordinator to Region 5 states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And in addition to covering Iowa, I'll also be covering Missouri. And we're hopeful that we can get somebody hired full-time to replace Jim Lundstedt and tell them it'll be me. I was previously Minnesota's statewide interoperability coordinator and the program manager for Minnesota's statewide land mobile radio system known as ARMOR. Had the opportunity in that position to work with the SWIC Chris Myers, also Worth County Sheriff Dan Fink, and several others from Iowa. I have a law enforcement background. My first career, 25 years in suburban law enforcement outside of Minneapolis. I'm going to give you my contact information at the end of my remarks. So if any of you are interested in taking that down, you can have a pen and paper ready, and I'll share that info with you. So I'm excited to get to know and work with each one of you. Jim Lundstedt left some pretty big shoes to fill. And as all of the emergency communication coordinators from CISA across the nation are a little bit different, I'm going to continue to try and give you the same level of support that Jim Lundstedt gave, although it'll be just probably slightly different in how it feels. I have a lot of catching up to do. I'm anxious to learn where Iowa stands on its SCIP goals. I'm prepared to find ways that CISA can support you in working through the tactics to achieve those goals. As Minnesota's SWIC and as the ARMOR program manager, I had the opportunity to be engaged in some of the ground floor meetings with Isicsb. I remember many years ago being invited to Des Moines for a several-day meeting as the whole system was being contemplated. And I've learned a lot about Isicsb over the last couple of years, particularly working on an interstate LMR interoperability project that was rooted in Worth County and advanced with great leadership by Sheriff Fink. So that was a great opportunity for me. I'm anxious to learn a lot more about Iowa's 911, land mobile radio, public safety broadband, and alert and warning initiatives. It's been apparent to me just in the little bit that I've had here with Iowa in the past few weeks that Iowa has really strong committees. I don't know that my calendar is going to allow me to get involved in all those committees, but if there's a particular project I can support, please extend an invitation to me to attend that meeting and to be part of that conversation. I definitely would like to do that. And as I try and find my way in Iowa, please just let me know how I can assist you. I'm going to just take a quick moment to tell you a little bit about what's happening at CISA. While I do so, there is both a FedEx truck and a garbage truck in front of my house and a dog that is ready to go crazy, so you have to excuse me if that happens. The emergency communication coordinators are still on track to transition from the Emergency Communications Division to the Integrated Ops Division, or IOD. And I know that there's been probably been shared with you that that's happening, that there's been some nerves about that transition. But I just want you guys to know that I'm optimistic about the transition. I think that the emergency communications world found a terrific home in CISA, in a neighborhood where both critical infrastructure and cybersecurity are our next door neighbors. And there's a lot of talk about how we don't want to be siloed in the emergency communications world. And I think that this is an opportunity to have some synergies between both that physical security and that cybersecurity and emergency communications, which of course needs both. From the CISA headquarters front, CISA recently published a document called Responding to Drone Calls, Guidance for Emergency Communication Centers. And this is a document that gives options for 911 telecommunicators to consider regarding fielding calls about drones. And it also gives some law enforcement some best practices to follow. Also in September, CISA released a new CISA Insights document entitled Risk Considerations for Managed Service Providers. And, you know, cybersecurity is right in our title, and we recognize that there are costs and operational efficiencies to outsourcing IT. And this document that we've produced gives guidance on how to manage some of the third-party risks that comes with outsourcing, and even provides a checklist for decision makers, operators, and technicians. And I think that as our emergency communication technologies transition from legacy circuit-based systems to IT systems, that we need to keep cybersecurity front and center. All of those documents and more, of course, are available on the CISA.gov website, and you can certainly contact me, and I'd be happy to, you know, share anything like that with you. I'd also be happy to add you to a distro list that I have where I push out emergency communications information on the average of maybe one email a day. It certainly won't overwhelm you, and I think there's a lot of good information. So if you'd like to be added to that, if you'd like to reach out to me, if you'd like some additional information, you can contact me direct. My phone number is 202-731-6350, 202-731-6350, and my email is james.stromberg, S-T-R-O, M as in Mary, B as in boy, E-R-G, james.stromberg@cisa.dhs.gov. A lot of great things happening in the Iowa emergency communications community, and I'm thrilled to be given the opportunity to be part of this community, at least just a short time, or maybe a long time. We'll see how long it takes to get somebody hired, but I'm thrilled to be here and to work with you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Jim, this is Dave. I just want to thank for the, even prior to our meeting, the benefit that you were starting to provide with the sharing of information via the distribution list. I'm sure different recipients find value in different things, and you seem to provide a cross-section information that we can glean more information out of. For example, yesterday I saw 2 or 3 groups forwarding the brief but helpful information about responding to calls for service regarding drones. So appreciate that, and I would encourage others to forward your email address if you want to get on that distribution list. Appreciate your report today, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again in a couple of moments. All right, on to the Stanford working group. Swick Myers. Yeah, really quickly, we're still working on the comment adjudication for standard 1.4.0, which is pursuits. We did receive that back from the operations committee, and they gave us some pretty good feedback as well on that. And we did not have, the way we kind of deemed it during the meeting, we had people there, but we didn't have enough diversity among the stakeholders that were going to be reviewing that document to make sure that it would fit the operational pictures of as many as possible. So we are tabling that for next, later this month, I guess. That meeting is on the 4th Tuesday of the month, and if anybody wants to be a part of the adjudication of that standard for pursuits, please feel free to jump in. It is a public meeting. You may not necessarily be a formal working group member, but we will certainly listen to your feedback, as we've had many callers call in before with something that was of particular interest to them, and they gave the feedback, and it was taken into account in the final document. So we did meet last month. We had to table the topic material until this month. So that's the report from the Standards Working Group. I will take any questions.
Do you have a time?
The meeting starts at 10:00. All right, we'll move on to the last item under 16, information sharing framework. And Chris, are you going to introduce the staff? Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. The one thing that SWIFs tend to get involved in within the community is the national initiatives that are outlined as areas of need. And as I have been privileged to serve on many of these committees in the past, this new one came up a few years ago at a joint National Council of SWIFs and SAFECOM meeting called the Information Sharing Framework Task Force. When they presented the concept of the group at that joint meeting, I thought this was a great opportunity to not only learn, but possibly bring something back directly to Iowa as a result of that committee participation. Data interoperability is a fairly vexing and nebulous topic, as it can take on so many different types and forms, and it evolves over time as well. So with us today, we have some of the key people from that group. We have Rob Dew from TISA on the phone, John Capescal, and Jonathan Fulmer that are kind of the leads on running that project. And they have something that they would like to present to us today with respect to a potential pilot and kind of a joint effort in improving data interoperability in Iowa. So with that, I'll go ahead and pause. Rob, John, or Jonathan, are you guys on with us right now?
Yes.
Yes, Chris.
Perfect, Jonathan. And would you like control of the presentation to show your screen?
So I'll need permission in order to share slides, is what it's telling me.
Yep, I will go ahead and get that to you.
All right. Oh, thank you.
You are now the presenter.
Give me 1 second. I need to update the settings here on my computer. So just kind of what I was thinking. Window.
I can take it back and run the presentation from my PC too, if that would be easier, sir.
Are you able to see it at the moment? PowerPoint slides?
I'm not.
So it's still, yeah, I'd have to restart.
Yep, I will go ahead and take control back, and I will go into the pilot. So
thank you.
It should be on the screen for everybody to see now. And on the GoToMeeting tenant, can you see the title page of the slide?
Yes. I can see it, Chris.
Perfect. Go ahead and take it away, Rob.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, good morning. I'd like to thank the board and Chris Mayers for giving us an opportunity to present this proposal. We did a same brief earlier with the Iowa 911 Communications Council. We'll try to get through this in about 10 minutes because I know it's a packed agenda. As Chris had mentioned, I'm a senior technologist with CISA, the Emergency Communications Division, same as Jim Stromberg, who was introduced earlier. My primary background's in 5G design, 5G network security, priority emergency communications, and communication interactions with the EZNet and the nationwide wireless service providers. As Chris also mentioned, John Contestable is going to be presenting some of these slides with me as well. He's a director of public safety solutions at Skyline Technology Solutions. He's held many positions supporting public safety, positions at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, Maryland SWIC. I think he was actually the first SWIC in the U.S., and a lot of experience with video interoperability between organizations, which is obviously a key component of NG911 media. And Jonathan Fulmer is my PM with Johns Hopkins, and they've been integral in helping us with the information sharing framework, the document, and now trying to move the document into a capability. So today I'll quickly go over the ISF at a high level, its status, its application to this project proposal we're presenting, and the different phases of the project, with the ultimate goal of asking the board for a go, no-go decision to move forward with this project. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so one of the things that's been coming up for a couple of years that we've heard from public safety is that, you know, trying to get real-time situational awareness relies on being able to make data interoperable and enabling information sharing across platforms, spanning different organizations, different technical boundaries, different disciplines, especially for wide-scale events. The information sharing framework introduces a architectural concept composed of 3 layers: the data layer, the integration layer, and the presentation layer, which John will talk about in a moment, and how public safety can map their data to this framework as part of the steps of building IT connections to share data. And the overarching goal of the ISF is to inform and guide the transition of operational capabilities to a common data exchange approach for an interoperable ecosystem. So as Chris had mentioned, almost 2 years ago, we started, it was a joint SAFECOM and National Council of Statewide Interoperability Coordinators, a task force composed of subject matter experts in IT from public safety agencies across the country. It was just stakeholders. There was no vendor involvement in this. And we had members from law enforcement, fire, EMS, members from urban, suburban, and rural areas, and members with different backgrounds in technology operations, governance, and policy. Four of the pillars that we have guiding the ISF is really about interoperability, security and credentialing, resiliency, and data management. And right now, the information sharing framework is a document that should be published within the next month or so on the CISA SAFECOM website. But as the task force goes into 2022 and onward, we're looking at moving from a document that captures what we're looking for and the framework to actually approaching industry to start doing a technical proof of concept to try to see what it would take to develop this capability, whether it would be a software platform or part of a priority service, whether like wireless priority service or working with FirstNet and the other broadband providers supporting public safety, and a set of tools that could help certain organizations customize the ISF for their needs and their use cases. So part of that technical POC is really leveraging focus groups and operational vetting with stakeholders that will feed operational performance and functional requirements into that technical POC. We had one last month in July, or 2 months ago, in July, with Houston, looking at a school shooting case of situational awareness, video, and GIS. We would like to use Iowa as this focus group in this pilot, specifically regarding CAD to CAD data exchange and exchange of NG911 media between PSAPs and over and across the EZNet connection to broadband providers. Some of the benefits we see with the ISF is it's really trying to aggregate and create a structured approach for operational information sharing, try to identify the most critical public safety services and best practices, and provide an informed roadmap of actions that public safety can take to solve the interoperability issues and gaps through governance, through acquisition, alignment with priority services, training, and potential grants alignment. And it also, and this is what's so great about Iowa and approaching you guys, is the fact that you have this interoperability board, because one of the goals of the ISF is also to document, the need for emergency communications interoperability across multiple technologies and functions: land, mobile radio, broadband, NG911, CAD, RMS, and alerts and warnings. So the next slide, please. So I'm going to hand it off to John Contestable to discuss the three-layer cake, as he calls it. This has been his concept for quite a while, and he'll talk about this and why the ISF process is critical to this project.
Thank you, Rob. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. As Rob said, the ISF approach, the information sharing framework approach, is basically a three-layer approach, and it's a structured approach for sharing information across different platforms and different networks and different agencies. And so, as you can see on the slide, imagine, if you will, that you've got information that lies at the data layer, and those are the different CAD systems, the different video systems, different record management systems. I mean, these are all different systems that are not as interoperable as we would like them to be. Most of them were designed without interoperability necessarily in mind as a priority or a design requirement. So you have all of these systems at the data layer that don't necessarily talk to one another. And then, of course, if you could look at the top of the graphic, you have the presentation layer, and that's basically, where does that data need to go? And that's increasingly the public safety professional in the field, the law enforcement officer, the EMT. These are responders who need to get data sent to them that's relevant to the call that they're going on. And so the challenge is, how do you get the data from where it lives in the data layer in all these siloed systems to the presentation layer, to the people who really need it at that point in time? As we like to say, the right data to the right person at the right time. And the ISF framework recognizes that you can't build a detailed architectural model for a particular state or a particular set of applications, because that's going to vary. But what we wanted to try to do with the ISF is give you an approach to how you ought to tackle the problem. And the problem really basically says that you have to build tools and mechanisms in the integration layer to facilitate that exchange. So what we're trying to do with these different projects, and Rob mentioned that we did a project in Houston recently, we took a look at video in particular in the data layer, and the Houston area has a number of video systems, and they would all be relevant during an active shooter type situation. And so we looked particularly at how you might architect the integration layer to move video around from say the school system to law enforcement or to the emergency management agency. And with Iowa, we're hoping to do much the same with your CAD systems, and to look at CAD to CAD interoperability. How might the integration layer be shaped in order to move video across systems, across counties, and get it from where it lives to the first responder in the field? So that's the concept behind the interoperability sharing framework, the three-layer approach, as we call it. If there's any questions, I'd take them, but if not, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay. So why is this really important? Well, as we move into next generation 911, sharing photos, video, and text messages is going to be important. And while we're putting in place the EZNets, and Iowa's done a great job at moving that forward, we're putting the pipes in place in which we can deliver this type of data to the call center. But we want to look at the systems level and the applications level now to figure out how we might be able to architect those systems. So, as data comes into the call centers, you have to look at how you could guide that information flow, what personnel needs are there. We need to obviously look at policies and budgets, and I know you have a governance committee and a technology committee, and they'll be front and center with this type of effort. And so we basically want to enable the technology to facilitate the data sharing and improve interoperability, and then that allows you to take a look at policies and budgets and and actually workflows on how you use that information. So this project would take a look at CAD-to-CAD interoperability and the technical challenges associated with that, and then move on to the other aspects. So that's what we have in mind. I'll turn it back over to Rob now to pick up the presentation.
Thanks, John. Next slide, please. All right, great. So we're proposing this project in a phased approach to be success-based, and we've broken it up into 3 phases. And phase 1 would basically be kind of an inventory of what the current as-is situation is. We want to identify key stakeholders in Iowa, which they come from this board, obviously, people working on the NG911 project, IT personnel, those very familiar with the Iowa fiber ring and data transport. And then what we would want to do is we want to look at what are the current plans and future plans and architectures, ConOps, and capabilities in relation to NG911 and the current situation of what CAD systems are out there and how many flavors there are of them. Look at a lot of the technical and functional requirements to achieve CAD-to-CAD interoperability and with NG911 media, looking at the networks, the type of bandwidth, the different disparate data sets, what are the capabilities of the transport connecting PSAPs, ECCs, EOC, if there's any, fusion center input there. Is it connected all fiber? Is there microwave? How much of it's Ethernet IP? Is there any TDM? And is it MPLS? Those sorts of things, just to try to get an as-is of what are the current plans, what are the future plans, and what are the different configurations. We did learn in the earlier council meeting that there's 112 PSAPs in Iowa. So how many different flavors would we be looking at for a sample size in this pilot project, based on PSAPs covering rural areas, suburban areas, different transport connections, the different CAD systems, and the different interfaces and configurations. And then the next phase would be phase 2, where we would basically take that information and we would have a user focus group like we mentioned in Houston in July, and step through the ISF process to customize it for this particular use case. So it would be very clear. We would identify and develop the proposed technical and operational solutions that would address any gaps in the existing networks or plans in order to exchange CAD and NG911 media. And now I have funding right now for phases 1 and phase 2. Depending on the success of those and the approval of those moving forward from the 911 Council and this interoperability board, then the next phase would be phase 3, and that would be really about developing and piloting a common information exchange technical proof of concept that could demonstrate this capability between PSAPs and across the ESINet with the wireless broadband providers. And then a fully documented ISF process and final report with outcomes and recommendations. And I'll talk about in the next slide a little bit of some of the advantages of doing this. So I'll go to the next slide because I know we're running out of time. I don't want to take up too much time. Next slide, please. So, the real goal of this presentation here to the board is to really get the okay, a go, no-go decision on this. Not to influence the decision or anything, but the 911 Council earlier seemed to be in favor of moving forward with this. We'd be looking for, through Blake and Chris Mayers, what are the specific contacts we should be working with, assuming this goes forward for phases 1 and phase 2. We want to make sure we cover all the bases, but we also want to make it clear that we are taking the financial burden for this project and all the resources. We want to minimize the time spent by the SMEs. We respect that they have day jobs. We will handle all the heavy lifting on this project. And in terms of the mutual benefits of this, we want to produce a customized ISF for information exchange of CAD data and NG911 media that we could turn over to Iowa for the EOC PSAP ecosystem. To enhance or complement the current NG911 functionality with voice and texting capabilities. And we'll provide documents of all the interactions with the user groups and deliverables and architectural diagrams coming out of that. One of the big advantages for us is what John and I were mentioning earlier, is that, we had that user group in Houston. We did primarily on video and GIS of the school shooting. this presents a great opportunity to do the same thing with CAD and NG911 media. And it'll help us take a lot of operational requirements out of that and put them into the technical proof of concept that we'll be developing with industry, and will help us vet to see if we can implement this as a service to public safety, how that would be implemented, and what the tools would be involved with that. I'm the architect for Wireless Priority Service in the Government Emergency Telecommunications Service, which right now does voice interoperability for over 20 wireless and wireline carriers. It includes voice interoperability on LTE between the nationwide carriers. And as we're moving into doing priority data, video, and information services, this will also be very key for us because it will help us determine what's the most critical type of NG911 media being used in Iowa, what's the critical CAD data that has to be shared, and when that data has to go across the EZNet back out to the first responders, it'll give us a really good idea of what are the network settings that we'll approach the carriers with in terms of guaranteed bit rate, QoS, latency, and how to prioritize this different information under different services on the wireless broadband networks. It also dovetails nicely in some other projects that we have with the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology regarding CAD-to-CAD interoperability, as well as some of the mapping we're doing on traffic patterns we see coming into PSAPs that could feed an artificial intelligence or machine learning function that could sit at PSAPs or on the other side of the EZNet from the carriers to help filter and near real-time sort through and monitor and guard for DDoS and other cybersecurity attacks of all this NG911 media that's coming that will be a real deluge for PSAPs, both from a cybersecurity point of view and just on the magnitude of content. And then one final synergy with this is that I'm on a working group with industry and other government officials and NENA officials where we're looking at a lot of the NENA standards for emergency incident data object conveyance across the EZNet connection with the wireless broadband service providers based on the EIDO subscription case, and we're looking at how to test and vet that functionally and from a performance point of view. And I think this would provide a lot of synergies and alignment with that activity as well. So there's a lot of activities we're doing in related to CAD-to-CAD and NG911 and priority with the wireless broadband service providers. And I think this is going to be a key component of that holistic approach to benefit not only Iowa, but public safety in general. I don't want to go over my time, so I will turn it back to the board chair and ask if there's any questions we can answer, and if we could maybe do a motion to approve this, or if you need some more information for that. But I'll turn it back over to the board chair now, and thank you.
Well, thank you. And boy, this is an exciting opportunity from my view. I'd be remiss to entertain board action without at least offering an opportunity for Swift Myers and Patrick Updike, the chair of technology, to weigh in if there were any additional comments. Either Chris or Patrick.
Yeah, the one thing here that strikes me about this, Mr. Chair, is that this is a huge opportunity for us, and this would probably be something that falls under our org structure of being able to establish an ad hoc group to work with this that can be stood up on short notice and then also decommissioned when the time comes. So I think we've got a lot of flexibility with this, and I think this is a big opportunity for us to be on the leading edge of something. So Patrick, are you on still as well?
Yeah, we have plenty of technology committee members that are very interested in this, and I think that we would welcome the idea and be willing to tackle this.
Excellent. Yeah, I tend to agree, Chris. I'm not sure that a formal board action is necessary. I think there's considerable excitement. I'd open it up to other board members if I'm misstating or mischaracterizing their view, but otherwise I sense some consensus. It's not board funds, it's not board led. We simply are going to be exposing CISA and industry to some of our subject matter experts in the field. Seems like a very appropriate connection and something that we'd enjoy and benefit from participating in. Any different views from the board, either in the room or remotely?
Mr. Chair, this is Blake.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, definitely not an opposing view. Just wanted to add a little bit from the 911 perspective. As was mentioned, this presentation was also given to the 911 Council, and similarly to the Isicsb board, it was a resounding yes, please proceed. I've already started to establish PSAPs who are interested in wanting to participate. So, you know, from the 911 program perspective, CAD isn't necessarily in the wheelhouse of the truest sense of 911, but it's certainly a component of what a PSAP does. So while it doesn't nicely fit into the 911 program, it doesn't not fit either. So and Chris and I thought this was a good opportunity to bring both the Interop board as well as the 911 component into this project and work collaboratively. So both from the council and from the 911 perspective, I wholeheartedly support it.
Excellent. Anyone with a differing view? All right, please proceed and work with CISA and the industry to and occasionally report back with updates from the task force. Thank you for the presentation on that.
Thank you.
All right, any additional old business? We had something on the prior agendas under old business, sub-regional talk groups, and that have been on there for some amount of time. That's been kicked back to standards to basically bring back to the full board to finalize or at least bring that back for consideration in hopes of finalizing that. I think there are thousands of radios here in the metro area that have that sub-regional on the radios. It's working as intended, so we just look forward to kind of putting that behind us, and no update beyond that was necessary. Look forward to seeing that in the near future, but I recognize standards has a lot on their plate. So we'll move on to the agenda, new business, and Sheriff Schlutenhofer for new Isicsb users.
Mr. Chair, I think Sheriff Schlutenhofer had to drop for a call within his county. I saw that Mr. Rob Dennert was on before. He is the vice chair. Mr. Dennert, you can handle new business if you would like, or I can take it. So whichever you prefer.
Do you have in front of you? I don't have them.
I do.
Go ahead then.
Okay. So under new business today, during the report of the User Group Committee, you heard Sheriff Schlutenhofer talk about the 5 applications that came up before the User Group Committee last month. All were found to be appropriate with respect to loading, and the requests made sense, and they were all forwarded to the board today for final approval. They are Cherokee Regional Medical Center at level 2, Powashik County Emergency Management at level 1, Webster City Police Department. There is a typo on the agenda that should be level 3, not level 2. Westcom has an update to onboard another agency. So they're remaining at level 4, but they are onboarding a significant number of radios. So they have an update for the board as well. And Dubuque County 911 has an update as well to allow for more of their radios to get access to the interoperability talk groups as they feel the need to put them into radios. Again, all were deemed to be appropriate for loading, and they were reported to the board for final approval. So as the non-voting member of the group, I cannot make a motion, but I can open the floor up to anybody else, or you can, Mr. Chair. I suppose that's more on your bailiwick to do that.
Schaefer, make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second? Schaefer and Fink. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on to the public comment portion of the agenda. The public comment for the board. Hearing none, the meeting will be adjourned at 11:46. Thank you all for your participation.